Halo pemirsa YouTube, kembali bertemu dengan Wahyu Wirawan dari Bahiti Photobook di sini. Pada video kali ini saya ingin mengajak pemirsa YouTube untuk melihat proses interview saya. Mungkin sedikit latar belakang aja, saya sudah tidak bekerja lagi selama 3 tahun ini. Jadi saya terakhir itu bekerja sampai bulan Desember 2017. Dan setelah itu saya hanya stay di rumah full time sebagai asisten rumah tangga. Jadi dan baru-baru ini kebetulan ada iklan untuk posisi yang cocok dengan pengalaman saya. Jadi saya coba lagi. Dan alhamdulillah saya dipanggil untuk interview online tentu saja karena pandemi sekarang ya. Dan tadi interviewnya itu dari jam 10 sampai sekarang jam sekitar 50 menit lah. Dan lumayan ada sekitar panelisnya ada 5 orang. Jadi ya repot juga ya. Karena saya juga sudah terakhir interview itu saya bulan Januari 2019. Jadi udah hampir 2 tahun ya. Udah 2 tahun malah. Sekarang udah Desember 2020. Dan yang terakhir itu saja prosesnya itu sekitar 3 bulan, hampir 4 bulan malah, 4 bulan sampai April. Karena yang terakhir di 2019 itu juga saya bekerja sebagai ekspatriat di Bangkok, Thailand mulai bulan April sampai, tapi hanya bisa bertahan selama 4 bulan sampai bulan Agustus. Jadi mudah-mudahan aja yang untuk posisi ini ya saya bisa diterima insya Allah. Dan karena juga ya saya juga agak-agak takut juga ya karena udah lama off juga kan. Jadi yang saya tidak tahu apakah saya bisa menghandle pressure-nya nanti kalau diterima gitu kan. Karena ini memang benar-benar proyek, karena ini juga di proyek yang cukup lumayan besar, sekitar 5 juta euro ya. Dan proyek itu nantinya akan berjalan selama 2 tahun. Ini juga regional project di ASEAN. Dan proyeknya itu berfokus pada scholarship. Pembelian scholarship untuk mahasiswa-mahasiswa Indonesia untuk bersekolah di negara-negara ASEAN. Jadi ya lumayan dari sisi administrasi juga lumayan repot ya. Karena banyak sekali ntar mungkin dokumen-dokumen yang perlu di manage juga. Paperworknya juga ya lumayan banyak ya. Juga dari sisi financial transaction-nya juga akan lumayan tinggi volumenya. Dan lumayan sering karena untuk pembayaran tuition aja itu kan bisa setahun aja berapa kali ya, mungkin 2 kali, belum lagi biaya-biaya lainnya. Jadi ya saya bisa, walaupun saya tidak pasti, tapi saya bisa bayangin ini nantinya akan repot juga gitu. Tapi mudah-mudahan saya siap ya, karena ya sudah lama juga, sudah 3 tahun tidak mengalami pressure, tekanan, deadline di pekerjaan. Jadi ya tidak tahu lah masih bisa atau enggak. Jadi ya nanti berikut ini pemirsa bisa saksikan ntar gimana proses interview saya. Selama interview sekitar 50 menitan, apakah mungkin juga kalau ada yang bisa memberikan penilaian apa yang kurang, apa yang bisa diperbaiki, apa yang bisa saya jawab dengan lebih baik gitu kan. Mohon komentarnya ya. Yang pasti saya mohon kalau ada ya, saya minta kalau ada input yang positif dari pemirsa YouTube yang bisa membantu saya untuk menjadi lebih baik ke depannya. Ntar kalau misalnya, karena ini baru interview pertama ya, nanti berikutnya masih ada lagi interview berikutnya, nggak tahu kapan. Tapi karena mereka juga lagi ngebut ya sekarang, karena mereka harus segera rekrut bulan ini staff-staffnya untuk di project, karena mulainya itu sekitar minggu pertama atau minggu kedua bulan Januari tahun depan. Jadi ya, dan mohon doanya juga, mudah-mudahan kalau ya ini cocok dan saya bisa diterima, insya Allah, kalau Allah meridhoi ya. Baik, kalau itu sekian intro dari saya. Terima kasih. Okay, I'm ready. Should I speak in English or in Bahasa?
In English, please.
Okay.
Because you also recorded this interview.
Yeah. Okay, about myself. Well, first I'm a family man. I have 2 daughters. I live in Jakarta and I studied accounting, major in accounting. First I studied at the University of Indonesia, Polytechnic University of Indonesia, and then continued my bachelor to get my bachelor degree at Perbanas University. I graduated in 2000, year 2000, and then I basically before I started working already since 1994, so it's already like, and during that from the first time I worked in the finance and accounting department, and I moved a few times during my working period before I landed with EU delegation in December 2005 in the finance and contract section, handling mostly the project with international organization, and I stayed there around 12 years until 2017 before I decided to resign, and since then I have tried to start my own business but haven't been successful. So I did apply again in 2019 and got a position with WCS, Wildlife Conservation Society, as an expatriate located in Bangkok, Thailand. But I only...
So your duty station is in Bangkok?
Bangkok.
Okay.
Yeah, I started in April 2019 until early August 2019. It was also an EU project, basically a regional project for the Mekong region, which cover 7 countries, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so it was quite a big contract, actually a 10 million euro project for 4 years, but apparently it was a bit too much for me, so I would not continue.
So you decided to quit your job?
Basically I come to the realization that I was not ready for this project, so I decided not to continue my contract. So basically, yes, I resigned. I mean, the polite word is I resign. Yes.
Okay, so why do you apply for this position? What's the position, and why do you think you are the best candidate for this position? Please explain.
Why do I apply for this position? Okay, why do I apply? Because it's when I saw the advertisement, I look back, I search back in the Europe 8 website and see that this project was started in 2015, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So, and then after knowing the fact, I immediately contacted at the delegation and asked, I think I know this project. I think I helped somehow in either in the preparation stage or in the contracting stage or in the implementation during the first phase of the implementation phase. So, and then with the so yeah, okay, then so it's a bit like nostalgic. I mean, it's great to work in, and it will be great to work in a project that I have to deliver, because in 2014 and 2015 I was still working with the delegation, and although probably I'm not there during the period until it ended, I think in June 2020, yeah, the first phase. So why am I the best candidate for this? The first is that I have quite extensive experience with the EU. I mean, I worked with the at the EU delegation for 12 years. So although I may not remember all the regulation, but it's like learning, like when you learn to ride the bicycle. I mean, once you know how to do it, you just need to get refresh. So it will come back to you, and I still have connection inside. So especially, I mean, especially with, I mean, a lot of my portfolio is with, I think, in education sector. So I guess, I mean, I think it will help a lot in the administration of the project. I mean, yeah, because the best expert about EU regulations is of course the EU itself. So when you have connection inside, I mean, it's much easier for you to contact them. And basically, I'm just overall a positive person.
Okay, in your last employment with
WCS,
you mentioned in your CV, you have developed and implemented a system to analyze in terms of tracking the grant budgets, fund available, and disbursement. Can you please explain about what kind of system have you developed and how did you implement that system into your organization?
I did started to develop, but sadly I didn't manage to finish the development. So until I resigned, it was not finished yet. So I'm not sure how, I mean, did they continue? I mean, do they continue or not? And or did they decide to develop a new system? And if, I mean, I haven't been in contact with them again since I resigned. So I mean,
okay. As you already know, this position is expected to provide full administrative support, organize a workshop, and a high-level conference, for instance, including ordering air tickets for all participants.
yeah.
If you are requested to prepare a workshop in a short notice with a large number of participants, let's say around 100 participants from all ASEAN countries, how would you manage or prepare to carry out this task as good as possible? And second, if that request require you to work overtime even on weekends, do you mind with this request?
First, can I ask a question also? I mean, this concern to that question, that when you said to prepare a workshop, do you mean the Novik staff itself preparing the workshop, or do we outsource? Like we hired event organizer?
No, we do it ourselves.
Okay.
But with all the team members, with all of our certain members.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I have some experience with preparing a workshop, but yes, it was not a large scale workshop. I mean, in my part of my duties in the delegation I was also the deputy user service manager for the system, CRIS system in the delegation. So every year we had workshop in the region, so it goes around in each countries in the region. So, and Indonesia had a few times need to also host the workshop, the event, but basically it's not in hundreds of participants. So I mean, managing a workshop in short notice with a large scale participant, it will be a challenge, but
Okay, I think
and about the request for overtime, I don't mind. I mean, whatever necessary to do the job, to get the job done. If it require overtime during the weekend, it's a long time since I do overtime in the weekend, of course, but during my period working in Bangkok, Thailand, I work every day, even during holidays and weekend. I don't have holidays. I do have holidays, but it seems like I never have a holiday. I never had a holiday. It's like every day working even after the office.
Your sound is breaking.
Oh, really?
Can you please repeat it? Yes.
No, on the second question about do I mind to work during overtime, during holidays, during weekend? My answer is no, because my experience working in Bangkok, Thailand, it was like I work every day, even during holiday and weekend. So it's not something new to me. So yeah. But of course, it's all about time management, and I need to manage my time. And also, I suppose it will be a team there also, right?
Yes. This is Indonesia Timor, of course.
And how about utilizing NOFIC office in the other countries? Is it also possible?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
I mean, NOFIC is also present in other countries, right? In the region.
Yes, yeah. In several, we have NOFIC offices.
So, I mean, to manage long distance, it will be quite difficult. But of course, I mean, is it possible to also ask the help of the local NOFIC office, or no?
Yeah, for several coordination, we do the coordination with the NOFIC office where we're located in the place. Located in the place we are going to do the workshop, but mostly we do it ourselves from NOFIC Indonesia.
Okay, I mean, I'm just asking, I mean, if it's possible or not. If possible, then great. I mean, it will be a great help.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I think that's it as for now from me, and I would like to offer to Kustin maybe. Miss Kustin, please.
Yes, thank you, Louis. Halo Pak Wahyu ya.
Ya, halo Ibu.
Reviewing your CV, you already have a lot of experience.
Thank you.
But my question is only, I think one. Do you have any experience to deal with the auditors?
A lot of times, I mean, during my time with the delegations, I also managed, I mean, I actually contracted the auditor and also accompanied them during the field mission, and also liaise with them during the process, and then basically I oversee the whole process from the start until the end. But we don't do audit ourselves. It's always external.
Is it local auditors or external auditors? I mean international auditors.
Mostly we use more Stephens. So it's a local auditors located in Indonesia, but auditor that has a international connection.
Auditors, do you have any experience on the rejected report, or perhaps some of the documents are not compatible, something like that, and audit want you to solve the case?
Are we talking about auditor on the EU delegation or auditor on the project?
Yes,
because
for this case, for example, EU delegation, yeah.
For the EU delegation, we never, I mean, because EU is an international organization, we don't, we have our own court of auditor. So basically they just tell us, okay, we have selected your country as to be audited this year, so we will come and we request this documents. So basically I mean we need to provide all the documents that they requested, and until I resign, I mean I never, I mean there's a few times when, I mean, we always try to provide all the documents that they requested, because we try to do a good filing of our transaction. So thank God that during my period, at least we never have any experience that we cannot fulfill the audit request or we cannot provide them with the document that they requested. So, but if you ask about the condition, the audit of the project, that yeah, we have a lot of issues.
Okay, can you give me some example? What kind of issues on the case? On that case?
Mostly ineligible expenditures. Lot. I mean, the one of the main issue that I encounter during my period with the delegation is that most of the project, I mean almost all of them, at least the grantee or the awardee, they never read the contract. They never read all the general condition, the special condition. I mean, for them it's just after signature, file the contract. Keep them in the filing room. They never read the contract, so it's a big mistake. So, and they never read about what are the eligible expenditure, what are the ineligible expenditures. So, and so most of the finding of the auditor were about ineligible expenditures.
Okay, so what is your action or your solution if you found some expenditure are not eligible?
Then I immediately work with the organization. I mean, I contact also, of course, and basically help them. I mean to go through the issue. I mean, what was the finding? I mean, is it something because like eligible expenditure? I mean, what was the most reason? Is it just because they didn't have probably the supporting documents, or what was the reason? Or is it probably
perhaps to help you, I will give some case, some example. If you have one of the expenditure, for example, for the travel, and in the report they mentioned that the travel cost is about $1,000, but you cannot find the receipt or the proof of the documents, and then what is your action on that case?
Oops, that will be, I mean, of course, all the expenditures should be actual expenditure. So if you put $1,000, then you should have a supporting document, at least a receipt for $1,000.
Yeah.
So
what if your action, if you ask the person who spent the money and they cannot prove the documents, they said that the documents is missing or something like that, what is your action?
I mean, I think I will ask if that person could request at least a certified copy from the vendor or the provider, because a personal statement will not be useful in this case. It has to be a document from the third party.
Okay. I think that's it. My question. Perhaps Arif would like to add, or Luis. Thank you.
Okay, Arif, please. How are you?
Selamat pagi. Good morning.
Morning, Pak. I was just wondering, you have almost more than 10 years at the EU delegation in Indonesia,
Yes.
and you've worked with Ibu Desriani.
Yes.
Most of the projects that you handled are probably either implemented by
International organization.
parties,
Yeah.
Okay, so the projects that you handled are mostly done or implemented by a third party, an organization or an agency that is assigned by the EUD or by the EUD themselves. Are you familiar with the PACA contract?
Sorry?
With PACA contract, PACA.
PACA contract.
Yes, contribution agreement.
Oh.
I forgot the.
Contribution agreement with international organization.
Correct. Yes.
I think it's
Pillar
I forgot.
assessed, cooperation agreement. Pillar assessed contribution agreement. I think. Yeah. PACA is short for pillar assessed contribution agreement.
Oh.
How are you familiar with that contract?
I used to be familiar with that contract, yeah, but it was quite a long time ago. I forget. I think it's with the World Bank or with UN. I forgot.
Because recently EUD has been using this sort of contract for donors as a donor. Pillar assessed cooperation contract where they have agencies, several agencies that have already been pillar assessed. So they can manage their own funds, their own budgeting using EU funds. So I was wondering if whether you have experience in managing such contracts.
Sadly, no. I mean, because during my period there, no, we don't have. Yeah, it was pillar assessed, but it was not a pillar assessed contribution agreement.
Okay, because this is relatively new. I think it's only been around for the past 2 years for EUD. I'm also wondering whether you also do an audit for the implementing agencies. I think Dean have given you an example. If there's missing supporting documents or a partial supporting document, if you are in the side of the implementing agency and are requested to fulfill all of the requirements stated in the contract, because we know that EU projects are usually very stringent.
Yes.
For example, you have to have invoice. You also have to have a receipt, and you also have
Yes.
to have a proof of payment. Let's say one of those three is missing. What would you do as the implementing agency to fulfill the requirements of the EUD?
I mean, of course, yeah, it happens a lot during my period there, but yeah, I mean, of course, the best solution for that is prevention. I mean, we have to make sure that first we read the contract thoroughly, so we know exactly what are the eligible expenditure and the ineligible expenditure, and what are the supporting documents required for each transaction. And we also need to make sure that we do our filing correctly. And yeah, so basically, I mean, the best solution for that is also, yeah, I think it's prevention. So we try to do everything from the beginning until the filing correctly stage. But of course, if accident happens, so if we have missing documents or I don't know, probably not missing, or yeah, something like that, of course we have to try our best to get the supporting documents somehow. I mean, of course, yeah, we need to be creative on that side.
I'll give you an example because we're dealing with financing scholarships,
Mm-hmm.
and participants who are doing the scholarships themselves is out of our control, basically, because we are not in control of spending the funds themselves. For example, our students that are going abroad for the first time, maybe they lost their boarding costs, which if we go by the EU rule book, meaning that the air travel will be ineligible.
Yes.
But it's very difficult for us to prevent this from happening, like I said, they're students, they're very young, sometimes they lost their boarding pass. It's a different matter if it's a resource person or a professional who has experience in doing things like this. But for students, they're not used to keeping boarding passes like that, and sometimes you can lose your boarding pass very easily. So how would you, as the implementing agency providing the funds to these students, ensure that we can get all of the supporting documents, for instance, the boarding passes, for instance? And what would we do if students mistakenly or accidentally lost their boarding pass, for example?
Okay, first probably I would, like we did back in the delegation, we have like I don't know how do you call it, probably a pre-departure briefing to make sure that they understand what are required from them, from the students. I mean, what must they safeguard, make sure, and what are the documents that they must keep with them all the time, or make sure that they don't lose the document. And if they do lose the document, then we can still provide, I think we can still ask for the travel agent or the airlines for a statement or a confirmation that this person has traveled with the flight. I mean, have used the flight, and probably, if possible, a copy of the boarding pass.
Okay, you mentioned about briefing the students on their responsibilities in terms of finance. So, are you comfortable in giving those such trainings to students or to universities, for instance, on how to manage EU funds?
I mean, we do that regularly to our, at least, tender participant. So I think this is I guess this is not a big difference. I mean, they are adult, although they are student young, but they are adult. I mean, of course, it is also, we cannot assume that they will be diligently keeping all the documents with them, so we need to make sure that they understand what are required from them. So I don't know if, I mean, the scholarship, is it like a contract with the students in the forms of contract, or what?
Yes, we provide contracts with students and with universities with rules and regulations, but I'm wondering whether you have experience in providing such trainings, explaining the contracts to third parties on the responsibility.
The answer is yes.
You yourself personally done that?
Yes. I mean, I personally have do the presentation, and also managing also the workshop. I mean, the training, because usually it's not a very large group of people, and so basically before the pandemic, we can invite them to come to the delegation, but now I guess it will be an online meeting.
The previous trainings that you did, was it in English or is it local Indonesian?
In English. It was with international contractor.
International contractor, but is it mostly ASEAN based or English-speaking countries such as Europe, US, Australia?
For tender contract, mostly Europe.
I see. But you've never had any trainings with ASEAN countries before?
One during my time when I was stationed in Bangkok, Thailand. It was mostly with Asian member countries, but it was also in English.
you said you quit the job because of some reasons you think you cannot finish it. Can you clarify whether it's personal or is it workload?
It's mostly personal, because I think it was also the same reason. I mean, I have these 3 years period basically to reflect on myself. I mean, I try to search why did I actually fail on during my period in Bangkok. I mean, and why did I quit my great job with EU delegation? And I found the answer was basically boiled down to my mindset. I had a negative mindset back then. I mean, I always like jeopardize, sabotage myself. I will say like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of this. So it's basically boiled down to myself and my mindset. It's not about workload, it's something that you can manage.
How has it changed now? If you want to start again the working professional job, I understand that you have been doing.
I've been off for 3 years.
You're off for 3 years doing entrepreneurship. So what changed now?
I have trained my brain to acknowledge if I have a negative mindset, and then to change it into a positive mindset, and I have tried to do it as often as possible so it becomes a habit, so I don't have to really think about it, so it's happened automatically. So yes, probably, I mean, in 2019 probably I was not ready yet. I was still in that negative mindset stage, but now I have basically trained my brain to automatically convert all the negative mindset into positive one, and to not, I mean, just to be happy overall. Of course, I mean, yes, I still get down sometimes, I still have negative thoughts sometimes, but it's something that happen less compared to before. And I already have a method to basically conquer that negative thought, because I guess you have heard the saying that thoughts create reality.
Yeah.
So, and I believe also in the law of attraction. So,
Well, if it's based on paper, I think your CV really explains a lot. I'm just thinking about your psyche, in the sense how you will manage yourself in share if you are selected. The project itself is only for 2 years. It's not that long. However, losing a member of the team during that period would be very, very fatal for the project, of course, because whoever steps up will have a very limited time to go through the job, and we need to make sure that all of the team members are in a positive mindset, things like that.
yes.
Sure.
I mean,
I see your CV is very good. You have a lot of experience.
thank you.
But I also need to make sure that you yourself are comfortable with work, what you're going to do. You've been in the driver's seat of the EU for some time. Now you will be in the implementing agency seat. So it's a bit different in that sense.
Yes, I mean, yeah. If I can say something, I mean, yes, I have also quite a long thought about that. I mean, even when I was still with the EU delegation, I sometimes think about what if I move to the other side. I mean during those period, 12 years with the EU delegation, it's always me telling the grantee, I mean, what to do. You do this, I want this, I want that. So in this case, it will be the other way around. So yeah, I mean, and somehow I have experienced that during my 4 months period in Bangkok, Thailand. I mean, it was not so bad, but yeah, of course, I do miss the higher up position where you can tell the grantee what to do, what you want. You can ask them anything. Of course, I mean, I miss that sometimes, but I mean, I also come to the realization that I'm not there anymore, so I have to accept the condition, and then yes. And I think I'm ready to be in the other seat, and I'm the driver's seat, the implementer. Of course, I understand that this is a big project. I know. I mean, the first phase itself is around 9.6 million euro, if I'm not mistaken. And now you are entering the second phase. We'll enter the second phase starting next year with additional funding of 5 million. So it is quite a big project. And I don't know if whether the delegation has agreed to the extension, I mean, to the second phase next year, because I can only imagine that.
That's why we're starting the recruitment. Because they already have agreed to it, and we are starting immediately next year. So that's why we're preparing all of the recruitment, all of the teams to be ready by January. Yeah.
Yeah, and it will start on the the first week of January, if I may know.
Yeah, around first week or second week of January, we are starting phase 2 of Share.
Also, I guess you are now in supercharged mode to hire all the personnel.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So that's why we're starting this recruitment. Okay, I think that's it from me, Pak Wahyu. Thank you very much for answering my question. So I'll give the floor back to my colleague, Luis. Luis, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Arif. Of course, I still just one question for you, Wahyu.
Yes, please.
I believe your extensive experience with EUD, also from technical aspect, I think you are good, very good for this position. But what do you think what do you think the greatest weakness? What is your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness is I am perfectionist. I'm a bit impatient. I guess I have an OCD syndrome,
What do you mention?
OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. A mild, but it's a mild OCD.
Okay, if you mention you are a perfectionist man,
Perfect what?
you already mentioned that your weakness was
Impatient,
perfection.
perfectionist, yeah.
Okay. So, if you are selected, let's say you are selected, so how do you keep motivating yourself? Because through your working experience as you finance officer for almost 12 years and higher position with
CS,
which is
4 months.
Bangkok. So I assume this is an international position.
Yes.
So how do you keep motivate yourself with a lower grade of position?
I mean, as I have mentioned before, I mean, I have, during the past 3 years, I have tried to dig deep inside myself and really understand myself. I mean, to search for the real reason why did I left a good position with the delegation. Why did I fail to basically continue with a good position in Bangkok? So, and I have come to the realization that it's all boils down to mindset. So now, and I have trained my mind to really be on the positive side. So it's not, and also I'm not young anymore, so I understand that. So of course you cannot expect, I mean, you can dream you are in a high position, but you cannot expect that you'll be on top all the time. So yeah, I mean, it's just basically a realization that I'm now here, so I have to make good use of my condition right now and try to be the best, try to give the best of myself and perform at my best performance and give my best performance to the organization. So it's a self-realization basically that's basically I have trained myself to do. I mean, so just also, and I mentioned about the thoughts create reality and law of attraction, and so yeah, so basically I try to be as positive as possible, always, all the time, most of the time. And of course it helps to have a good environment, working environment, a great team. Yes, it does help. And I mean, if you can synergize with the other team member, then that really a big help also in motivating yourself to be positive, to do your job. So basically that's it. I mean, yeah, it goes back, and that's how I keep motivating myself and be positive always, even on the other side. I mean, I've been in the side of the donor, so and now I'm moving to the side of the recipient, the implementer. So yeah, it's a quite a big change. Yeah, and yeah, I understand that, and so I have to keep that in my mind, that I have to change, I have to adapt. I need to, I mean, the most important thing is the objective of the organization, of the project. So I have to keep that in mind, that it's all about the project, successful implementation of the project. It's all about that. So I have to make sure that as a part of the team, part of the project, I need to make sure that the project is implemented successfully. No hiccups, no problem, no issues, no ineligible expenditures. If possible, that would be great. And also try to get along well with the other team member, because you cannot work alone. I mean, I also believe very much on team, because that was my experience also with delegation. I had a great team back there, and we always help each other. So that's also help in motivating you to work, to stay positive during the working period. No matter how hard the project, no matter how tough the condition. Actually, I have questions if possible.
Yes, please.
No, I've been reading again the advertisement, especially on the position. Is it? I see this that Nuffic use the word finance and administration officer or scholarship finance and administration officer intermittently. So I want to ask whether is this finance and administration officer specific for the scholarship or is it for the general purpose of the project, general scope? I mean, is it more specific for the scholarship or is more general?
This position is I would like to explain was all the team's members is hired by Nuffic Nation Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
You may be already aware Nuffic Nation Indonesia has several scholarship programs.
Yes.
One of them is FLOS. So
I have some of the brochure here.
yeah. So you're only expected to as finance and as an associate for share program only.
Yeah, share program, but in that share program, is it just for the scholarship part or for the general or for the overall share?
No, only for scholarship program. And the fund managed by Nuffic Nation for share program only.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
Okay, Christine, do you still have more questions for Wahyu?
No, I think it's already covered by you and Arif before. I have no question anymore.
Okay, so we can now leave Mr. Wahyu with Aris to discuss further arrangement. Okay, now the three of us will leave this chat. Please stay with Aris, Mr. Wahyu.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oke, halo, selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi, Ibu Eris.
Iya,
Ibu yang tadi nelpon saya.
iya. Saya cuma hanya observe doang. Kalau misalnya Bapak Wahyu diterima, itu startnya misalnya kapan?
Dari Januari 2018.
Enggak, maksudnya kalau misalnya itu jadi untuk bekerjanya possible gitu ya.
Ya, jadi ya schedule saya untuk informasi saja. Saya sudah beli tiket dan booking villa di Bali dari tanggal 28 sampai tanggal 1 Januari. Jadi ya berarti saya ya available setelah itu gitu. Mulai dari tanggal 2 Januari saya sih available aja. Karena saya nggak ada kegiatan lain apa-apa lagi sekarang. Saya full time asisten rumah tangga.
Iya. Nggak apa sih. Oke. Ini kenapa simping aja nih? Oke. Saya mau nanya juga untuk the last salary-nya berapa ya?
Oh, kayaknya terlalu tinggi kalau untuk itu ya. Karena kan saya kan terlahirkan dengan World Life Conservation Society sebagai ekspatriat ya. Jadi ya, saya mungkin nggak bisa pakai juga, dan juga salary saya di EU juga saya mungkin nggak bisa pakai di sini juga kan, nggak mungkin juga. Karena terakhir saya itu sekitar basic salary plus housing allowance itu hampir 7.000 US dollar.
Oke. Terus kalau expected-nya berapa?
Expected, aduh, berapa ya? Sebenarnya mungkin Ibu Eris bisa sedikit cerita kepada saya gimana kondisi entar sama working conditionnya entar di Nuffic Nation ini. Kira-kira mungkin kalau dari pengalaman Ibu, apakah kita
expenditure itu kan bagian project dari NESO. Jadi memang untuk periodnya for only 2 years.
Yeah.
So the project will be ended until December 2022.
Yeah.
So if you get selected, you will have the contract for 2 years.
Yes, I understand that, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean so to really say about what my expected salary is, I think I need at least a background information and how is the working condition in Nuffic. I mean, is it do the I mean I will work to support the finance and administration manager, right? And the program officer, program manager.
Yeah.
So how about the I mean
nanti karena sel baby kita ada the next one.
Oh gitu, ini baru yang pertama aja Bu ya?
Iya. Kurang lebih berapa?
Kurang lebih. Ini harus di angka spesifik atau range?
Range aja.
Kalau range saya sih berpikir mungkin kalau saya baru melihat ini aja ya job desk-nya aja kan. Itu ya di antara 20 sampai 25 gitu.
Oke. Ya, nggak apa-apa. Thank you ya.
Tapi ya tentu saja ya mungkin ya dengan harapan culture-nya bagus di sana, working culture-nya juga, working environment-nya juga enak gitu kan.
Ya.
Terus tim-timnya juga top-top gitu kan.
Iya. Oke, terima kasih atas waktunya.
Sama-sama.
Oke.
Thank you.